Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on your YouTube channel. The best, fastest, quickest and most practical method of improving your English speaking skills is by reading short stories each and every single day, which is exactly what we're going to be doing in today's video, which we've done before and we're still doing and will keep doing until I make sure that you guys are learning English as best you can. What are we going to do in today's video? I'm going to be focusing your attention on an English story about the topic of technology, about someone, an old person who just wants to learn more about how to use technology, who wants to get the hang of technological devices and platforms. Are you ready? Of course you are. So let's read this story. Let's just read this story once to have an idea of what the story is about. Then we will go through the story word by word, sentence by sentence, and phrase by phrase. Then finally, we will read the story once again for the third time to make sure that we fully understand the content and, the meaning behind the story. Let's get started. Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related, but lately he felt like he was behind the times. New apps, smart devices, and updates were coming out left and right, and he couldn't keep up. His niece, Mia, took to technology like a duck to water, showing him how to use virtual assistants, smart lights, and cloud storage like it was a walk in the park. Jason felt like he was in over his head, but he didn't want to give up too quickly just yet. One day when his laptop gave up the ghost, Mia convinced him to finally get a tablet. At first, he was dragging his feet, unsure if he could handle the switch, but soon he was clicking away on the touchscreen, streaming videos, managing his emails, and even learning to video chat. "This thing runs like clockwork," he said with a grin. He had to admit it wasn't half bad to get with the times. Now Jason is back in the game. He may not be a digital native, but he's holding his own. He even started teaching his friends how to set up their smart TVs. "You can't teach an old dog new tricks?" He laughed. "Well, I beg to differ. It turns out with a little patience and help, anyone can learn to ride the tech wave, no matter how late they jump on the bandwagon." That was a nice story about someone learning how to use new applications, new devices, and trying to keep up with the pace of technology. Now let's read this story once again together and focus on the words, idioms, and expressions highlighted in yellow. Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related. Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related. What is the meaning of go-to person? Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related. What is the meaning of Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related? What is the meaning of go-to person? Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of go-to person is. A go-to person. A go-to person is a reliable person who is frequently called upon for help or expertise in a particular area. Let me read it once again. A reliable person who is frequently called upon for help or expertise in a particular area. In other words, when you describe someone as a go-to person, you consider that person a reliable individual that you count on and rely on in the face of difficulties, in the face of problems, when you have a question that you need someone to answer, when you need someone to provide you with help and assistance. So a go-to person is a person that you actually go to in order to ask for advice, help, and assistance. A person that you count on or rely on in terms of asking for help and assistance. Now we have an example of a go-to person. Sarah is the go-to person for computer issues in the office. Sarah is the go-to person for computer issues in the office, which means Sarah is the person that others in the office usually ask for advice, help, and assistance or support when it comes to computer or technology issues. Now let's scroll all the way back up. So Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related, which means Jason was once someone that you could take advantage of in order to receive help and assistance, in order to ask for help and assistance when it comes to technology or when it comes to anything related to technology. But lately he felt like he was behind the times. But lately he felt like he was behind the times. What is the meaning of being behind the times? To be behind the times. Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of being behind the times is. To be behind the times. To be behind the times means not keeping up with current developments or trends, or to be old-fashioned. Once again, not keeping up with current developments or trends. In other words, to be old-fashioned. So when you're behind the times, you're not up to date. You've not been able to keep up with, the technology of the day. You've not been able to keep up with the recent developments or trends. In other words, when we describe someone as the one who's behind the times, what we mean is they're, somehow old, or their lifestyle is old, or, everything they do is outdated, is not up to date, and they have not been able to modernize their lifestyle, the devices they use, their methods of doing things. Long story short, they've not been able to keep up with the technology. They've not been able to move with the times. They've not been able to update themselves on the recent trends and technologies or developments. Here we have an example. My grandfather is a bit behind the times when it comes to using smartphones. My grandfather is a bit behind the times when it comes to using the smartphones, which means my grandfather, has not been able to keep up with technology, has not been able to update himself on the recent trends and the technology of the day, and, he doesn't know how to use the smart devices or smartphones. Scrolling all the way back up, Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related, but lately he felt like he was behind the times. He felt like he was not able to update himself, his lifestyle, his methods, and everything, on the recent technology or trends. New apps, smart devices, and updates were coming out left and right. What is the meaning of left and right? Does it refer to directions, left and right? No. So let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of left and right is. Left and right. Left and right. Left and right means happening frequently and in many places or situations. Happening frequently and in many places or situations. In other words, when something happens left and right, it happens frequently or in many places or situations. Or when you do something left and right, you do it on a frequent basis. You do it on a regular basis and in many places and situations. Here we have an example. During the sale, people were buying items left and right. During the sale, people were buying items left and right, which means during the sale, people were buying items, goods, and products on a frequent basis, on a regular basis, in many places and many situations. Scrolling all the way back up, so new apps, smart devices, and updates were coming out left and right. They were coming out in many places, in many situations, and on a frequent and regular basis. And he couldn't keep up. His niece, Mia, took to technology like a duck to water. His niece, Mia, took to technology like a duck to water, showing him how to use virtual assistants, smart lights, and cloud storage like it was a walk in the park. So his niece Mia took to technology like a duck to water. What is the meaning of take to technology like a duck to water, or take to something like a duck to water? In order to find out what the meaning is, we need to scroll down as we always do. So take to something like a duck to water. Take to something like a duck to water means to learn or adapt to something very quickly and naturally. To learn something very quickly and naturally, or to adapt to something very quickly or naturally. In other words, when you take to something like a duck to water, what you do is you get used to doing something very fast and quickly. You adapt to something very fast and quickly. You learn something very quickly and naturally, or you learn how to do something, pretty quickly at a snap of a finger, and you just get used to doing it. Here we have an example. She took to painting like a duck to water. She took to painting like a duck to water, which means she learned painting quickly and fast and naturally. She, adapted to painting naturally and quickly. Scrolling all the way back up. So his niece, Mia, took to technology like a duck to water, which means his niece, Mia, learned how to use technology very fast and quickly and naturally, adapted to technology naturally and very quickly, showing him how to use virtual assistants, smart lights, and cloud storage like it was a walk in the park. Like it was a walk in the park. What is the meaning of a walk in the park? A walk in the park. We need to scroll down and find out what the meaning of a walk in the park is. A walk in the park. A walk in the park means something that is very easy to do. Something that is very easy to do. So a walk in the park describes something that is very easy and simple to do. Something that, doesn't take brain surgery to do. Something that does not, take rocket science to do. Here we have a relevant example. For someone with her experience, fixing the computer was a walk in the park. For someone with her experience, fixing the computer was a walk in the park, which means for someone with her experience, fixing the computer was very simple, easy, and basic to do. His niece Mia took to technology like a duck to water, showing him how to use virtual assistants, smart lights, and cloud storage like it was a walk in the park, like it was very easy, simple, and basic to do. Jason felt like he was in over his head, but he didn't want to give up too quickly just yet. Jason felt like he was in over his head, but he didn't want to give up too quickly just yet. What is the meaning of be in over your head? To be in over your head. Jason felt like he was in over his head. What is the meaning? What does Jason felt like he was in over his head mean? Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of to be in over your head is. To be in over your head. To be in over your head means to be involved in something too difficult to handle. To be involved in something too difficult to handle. In other words, when you are in over your head, you are busy doing something that is beyond you, that is beyond the scope of your knowledge, beyond the scope of your capabilities, or you've started doing something that you cannot handle. You've started doing something which is beyond your IQ, beyond your knowledge, beyond your mental and physical capacity. So, to be in over your head means to be involved or engaged in doing something that is too difficult for you to handle or overcome or do. Here we have an example. He realized he was in over his head when the project became too complex. He realized he was in over his head when the project became too complex, which means he realized that he was involved in something too difficult for him to handle, something that was beyond him, when the project became too complex. All right, we go all the way back up. So Jason felt like he was in over his head, which means he felt like he was involved in something too difficult to do, something that was beyond him, and something that he was not able to handle because was, beyond the scope of his knowledge, understanding and mental capacity, but he didn't want to give up too quickly just yet. The next paragraph, one day when his laptop gave up the ghost, Mia convinced him to finally get a tablet. One day when his laptop gave up the ghost, Mia convinced him to finally get a tablet. What is the meaning of gave up the ghost? One day when his laptop gave up the ghost. What is the meaning of give up the ghost? Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of give up the ghost is. To give up the ghost. To give up the ghost. To give up the ghost means to stop working or die, usually about machines or devices. So to stop working or die, usually about machines or devices. In other words, when machines, devices stop working and no longer work, we use the word die, right? We say, hey, this machine has died. That car has died. This battery has died, which means this battery is not working anymore. This battery has stopped working and will not start working anymore. Or the car has stopped working and will not start working anymore. But instead of saying a machine or a device dies, we can use the expression of give up the ghost. When we say a machine or a device gives up the ghost, it means a machine or a device stops working and can no longer be used. So that's the meaning of give up the ghost. Here we have an example. My old phone finally gave up the ghost yesterday. My old phone finally gave up the ghost yesterday, which means my old phone finally stopped working and can no longer be used. Doesn't work anymore and stopped working yesterday. One day when his laptop gave up the ghost, which means one day when his laptop stopped working, Mia convinced him to finally get a tablet. At first he was dragging his feet, unsure if he could handle the switch. At first he was dragging his feet, unsure if he could handle the switch. What is the meaning of dragging his feet? At first he was dragging his feet, unsure if he could handle the switch. Let's just scroll down and find out what the meaning of drag your feet is. To drag your feet. To drag your feet. To drag your feet means to delay or be slow in doing something. To delay or be slow in doing something. So when you drag your feet, you're hesitant. You don't know what to do. You don't know whether you should do something or not. You're still considering all the aspects of a situation, or you're still hesitant about doing something. So when you drag your feet, you delay something, you delay doing something, or you're slow in doing something. Usually as a result of hesitation, as a result of being uncertain, as a result of not being sure about the decision that you want to make, or whatever it is that you want to do. Here we have an example. He kept dragging his feet about applying for the job. He kept dragging his feet about applying for the job, which means he kept delaying, he kept postponing things. He kept, delaying any decisions, or he kept postponing making any decisions about applying for the job because he was uncertain, he was unsure. All right, we go all the way back up. So Mia convinced him to finally get a tablet. At first he was dragging his feet, which means at first he was not sure whether it was a good idea for him to buy the tablet or not. Unsure if he could handle the switch, but soon he was clicking away on the touchscreen, streaming videos, managing his emails, and even learning to video chat. This thing runs like clockwork, he said with a grin. This thing, he was referring to the tablet. This tablet, this thing runs like clockwork, he said with a grin. What is the meaning of run like clockwork? Run like clockwork. Well, we scroll down and find out what the meaning of run like clockwork is, which is here, to run like clockwork. To run like clockwork means to function very smoothly and reliably. To function very smoothly and reliably. So when we say something runs like clockwork, it means it runs or works like a dream. It works and runs very smoothly and reliably. It works accurately and precisely, smoothly and reliably. Here we have an example. The meeting ran like clockwork, ending right on time. The meeting ran like clockwork, ending right on time, which means the meeting ran very smoothly and reliably, accurately and precisely, ending right on time. Let's go all the way back up. So this thing runs like clockwork, which means this thing works very smoothly and reliably, he said with a grin. He had to admit, it wasn't half bad to get with the times. It wasn't half bad to get with the times. What is the meaning of get with the times? Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of get with the times is. To get with the times, means to modernize or adapt to current trends. To modernize or adapt to current trends. So when you get with the times, you can also say move with the times. You try to keep up with the latest and most recent technologies in the market, the very recent technologies of the day. You try to update yourself on, the recent trends, and you try to modernize your procedures, methods, devices, and anything that you are using to do things, or you try to adapt to the recent trends and technologies. He needs to get with the times and start using online banking. He needs to get with the times and start using online banking, which means he needs to update his methods of transferring money, or he needs to update his approach to using the banking services. He needs to modernize his methods of transferring his money or managing his money. How? By using online banking. So he had to admit he wasn't half bad to get with the times, which means he had to admit that he wasn't bad at all to modernize his devices, his methods, his lifestyle, and be up to date. Now we move to the third paragraph. Now Jason is back in the game. Now Jason is back in the game. What is the meaning of being back in the game? To be back in the game. Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of be back in the game is. So, to be back in the game. To be back in the game means to return to an activity or field after a break or setback. To return to an activity or field after a setback or break. So when you're back in the game, you return to an activity after a period of a break, after a period of lack of activities, after a period of absence. After a year off, she's back in the game and ready to compete. After a year off, she's back in the game and ready to compete, which means after a year off, after a 1 year gap, she's back in the game. She has returned to the activity. She has returned to whatever it was that she was doing after a period of absence, and she's ready to compete. All right, now Jason is back in the game, which means now Jason has returned to the activities and is ready to get started. He may not be a digital native, but he's holding his own. He may not be a digital native, but he's holding his own. What is the meaning of hold your own? Hold your own. Well, let's just scroll down and find out what the meaning of hold your own is. To hold your own. To hold your own means to be able to compete or perform well compared to others. To be able to compete or perform well compared to others. So when you hold your own, you're competing with others. You're able to keep up with others and compete with them or perform well compared to others and their capabilities. Despite his age, he's holding his own in the tennis tournament. Despite his age, he's holding his own in the tennis tournament, which means despite his age, in spite of his age, regardless of his age, he's still competing in the tennis tournament compared to others. He's still able to compete and perform well compared to others. All right, back to the story. He may not be a digital native, but he's holding his own, which means he may not be a digital native. He may not be someone who knows all about the digital world. He's not a techno geek. He's not a genius when it comes to using technologies, but he's holding his own, which means he is able to compete with others. He even started teaching his friends how to set up their smart TVs. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. He laughed. Well, I beg to differ. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Have you ever heard this idiom before? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, let's scroll down and find out what the meaning of this phrase is. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't teach an old dog new tricks means it's difficult to teach someone new skills or habits, especially if they're older. It is difficult to teach someone new skills or habits, especially if they're older. In other words, when we say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, it means it is difficult and challenging to teach older people new skills and tricks, new things, because they're not as quick and sharp as the young people when it comes to learning new things, when it comes to learning skills, or when it comes to adapting themselves to new things. So you can't teach an old dog new tricks emphasizes the idea that the older people compared to younger people are slow when it comes to learning new things or upgrading their skills. My dad refuses to learn how to use a smartphone. You know what they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. My dad refuses to learn how to use a smartphone. You know what they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, which means my dad refuses to learn how to use a smartphone because the older you get, the more difficult and challenging it is for you. I'm not saying impossible, but the more difficult and challenging it is for you to learn new things or to learn new tricks or new skills. And the same goes for this person's father. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, which means teaching older people how to do things or new skills is far more challenging and difficult than teaching young people how to do so. He laughed. Well, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. What is the meaning of I beg to differ? Let's just scroll down and find out what the meaning of I beg to differ is. Well, I beg to differ. Beg to differ. Beg to differ is a polite way to express disagreement. A polite way to express disagreement. So when you want to disagree with someone about something, about an idea, about a topic, and you want to show this disagreement in a polite way, you want to express the sense of disagreement as politely as you can use this phrase, beg to differ. Beg to differ. I beg to differ, which means I politely and kindly disagree with what you're saying. Here we have an example. You think it's boring. I beg to differ. I found it fascinating. You think it's boring. I beg to differ. I found it fascinating, which means you think it's boring. Well, with all due respect, kindly and politely, I want to disagree with you. I found it very fascinating. Far from it. I found it fascinating. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, which means it is difficult to teach older people how to do things or new skills and tricks than, the young people how to do so. He laughed. Well, I beg to differ, which means I kindly and, politely disagree with you. It turns out, with a little patience and help, anyone can learn to ride the tick wave. It turns out, with a little patience and help, anyone can learn to ride the tick wave. What is the meaning of ride the tick wave? Ride the tick wave. What is the meaning of this? To ride the tick wave. Well, we need to scroll down and find out what the meaning of ride the tick wave is. To ride the tick wave. To ride the tick wave. To ride the tick wave means to adapt to and take advantage of technological advancements. To adapt to and take advantage of technological advancements. To adapt to and take advantage of technological advancements. That's the meaning of ride the tick wave. We have an example. Many businesses are riding the tick wave with AI and automation. Many businesses are riding the tick wave with AI and automation, which means many businesses are adapting to and taking advantage of technological advancements with AI and automation. So with a little patience and help, anyone can learn to ride the tick wave, which means with a little help and patience, anyone can learn how to take advantage of and adapt to technological advancements, no matter how late they jump on the bandwagon. No matter how late they jump on the bandwagon. What is the meaning of jump on the bandwagon? To jump on the bandwagon. What is the meaning of that? Well, let's just scroll down and find out what the meaning of jump on the bandwagon is. To jump on the bandwagon. To jump on the bandwagon. To jump on the bandwagon means to adopt a trend or activity because many others are doing it. To adopt a trend or activity because many others are doing it. In other words, when you jump on the bandwagon, you try to go with the flow. You try to swim with the currents. You try to swim with the tide. You try to join others in doing something popular. Others are doing something popular and trendy, so you try to join them in doing so. That's the meaning of jump on the bandwagon. He jumped on the bandwagon and started using the latest fitness app. He jumped on the bandwagon and started using the latest fitness app, which means he joined people in using the latest fitness app because this app has become very trendy and popular. Others are doing it, so he decided to go with the flow and do the same thing too. And that's about all, guys. We read this story once. We read it once again by going through the idioms, collocations, and all the words and new things. Now what we need to do is read this story for the third time, to connect with it better now that we know the meaning of these words and expressions highlighted in yellow. Jason was once the go-to person for anything tech related, which means Jason was the reliable person that you would usually go and ask for help and advice and assistance when it came to technology. But lately he felt like he was behind the times. But lately he felt like he was using the old-fashioned methods of doing things in his life. He felt that he had not kept up with the recent trends. New apps, smart devices, and updates were coming out left and right. The new apps, devices, and updates were actually coming out on a frequent basis in many places and situations. His niece Mia took to technology like a duck to water, which means his niece Mia adapted to new technology and learned it very naturally and quickly. Showing him how to use virtual assistants, smart lights, and cloud storage like it was a walk in the park, like it was something very easy, simple, and basic to do. Jason felt like he was in over his head. Jason felt like he was involved in something too difficult for him to do and handle, something that was beyond him. But he didn't want to give up too quickly just yet. One day when his laptop gave up the ghost, one day when his laptop stopped working and died, Mia convinced him to finally get a tablet. At first, he was dragging his feet. At first, he was delaying doing so because he was not sure that, it would produce a positive result or not. He was not sure whether he would be able to handle the switch, the tablet, or not. Unsure if he could handle the switch. But soon he was clicking away on the touchscreen, streaming videos, managing his emails, and even learning to video chat. This thing runs like clockwork. This thing works very smoothly and reliably and accurately, he said with a grin. He had to admit, it wasn't half bad to get with the times. It wasn't bad at all to update yourself on the recent technologies and trends. It isn't bad at all to keep up with the recent trends and technologies and to adapt to to modernize your methods of doing things or adapt to the recent trends or methods of doing things. Now Jason is back in the game. Now Jason has returned to the activity after a period of absence or break. He may not be a digital native, but he's holding his own, which means he may not be a techno geek, but he knows how to compete with others, is still able to perform well and compete with others. He even has started teaching his friends how to set up their smart TVs. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, which means it is much more difficult to teach older people how to do things, new skills or tricks than younger people. Or older people are not able to adapt to new things or learn new things and skills because of their age. He laughed. Well, I beg to differ, which means I kindly and politely disagree with you. It turns out, with a little patience and help, anyone can learn to ride the tech wave. With a little bit of help and patience, anyone can learn how to adapt to and take advantage of the technological advancements. No matter how late they jump on the bandwagon, no matter how late they go with the flow, they swim with the current or with the tide, or they join others in doing something popular and trendy. And that's about all, guys. That was an interesting story, wasn't it? How did you find this story? I want you to leave a comment down below and share your opinion of the story with me. Now what I kindly want you to do is like this video in support of this channel. Thank you for doing so. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll be back soon with another video.